1942. Dude, oi, what do you think this is? A school history project? Get out of here, I'm taking over. Let's talk about the Night Witches. It's a Russian all-women air force during World War II. In 1942, during the siege of Leningrad, Red Army suffers from heavy blows from the Nazis. Out of desperation, a women's air force was created. Stalin! Sir! Our army can't keep this up! The siege will never end! Then leave the citizens in the cities so the soldiers will fight harder. You have already done that, sir! Then create a new air force! How? All of our men are already fighting! Yes, we will use women! Wait, what? So 3 units were created around with 400 women in between the ages of 17 to 26, a small part of the Russian power. They were a weak and yet successful force. They were allowed to return fire, do bombing runs, and fly missions. But most impressively, they did all of this using very poor equipment. They used basic tools like rulers, stopwatches, flashlights, pencils, maps, and compasses. Sounds like they were going on a hike more than going to war. You have to understand at this time, infrareds, radios, and torpedoes were used in war. As for the air part of an air force, they were only given
Polikarpov
PO2 biplanes, which were, you guessed it, training planes. It's like going to cycling in the Olympics, but you're given a tricycle instead of a racing bike. The planes were 2-seated with no protection against the elements. They battle frostbite in small compact machines, basically made out of cardboard. Actually made of wood. They would only fly around 2.3 miles above the ground and at the speed of 93 miles per hour, 150 kilometers per hour for my tea drinkers, which during the 1940s, the top speed of jets was up to 400 miles per hour. Even in these circumstances, they were very successful. Made over 23,000 sorties, dropping over 3,000 tons of bombs and 26,000 incendiary shells. They made the Nazis fear them greatly, terrified them due to the fact they only flown at night in silence.
I am a gun!
The poor equipment actually helped them in some way because the planes were so bad and small, radios and infrareds could not physically pick them up. And for the lack of equipment, they never used radios, so the Nazis couldn't pick them up that way either. The only warning the Nazis ever had was a whoosh sound that the wooden planes made before attacking, something that sounded like a sweeping broom. The Nazi called them the Nachttoxins, or the Night Witches. The planes flown quite low due to how bad they were, so all missions and bombing runs done during night, giving the Nazis a hard time attacking or detecting them. But even fighting in the air, they had some upsides. Being older planes, they were lighter, they could, ironically, outmaneuver and turn faster than the enemy. But the planes were so weak that if they were ever happened to be hit by tracers, they would burst into flames and explode. Fun fact, the Nazis were so scared that if someone ever downed one of the Night Witches, they were automatically awarded with the Iron Cross. And they also had theories on why women were so successful too. Some thought they were criminals that had been sent from the front line as punishment, or they had special injections that allowed them to see in the night. As for tactics, every mission the planes traveled in packs, a 42-person crew. Sending a few planes as bait, attracting the German spotlights, the baits would release flares and light up the target. The last planes turn off their engines and glide to the target in darkness, preparing to attack, which created the whoosh. Their last mission was on May 4th, 1945. This spanned 6 months after the end of World War II, flying over 30,000 missions. And out of the 1,200 pilots, only 30 pilots were never found. When the Moscow Victory Parade of 1945 came around, The night witches were never included, because, get this, their planes were too slow. Ending the war, 24 of the flyers were given the title of Hero of the Soviet Union, showing the power of these brave women, creating thousands of others to follow in their footsteps. Have you guys seen 23-year-old Joseph Stalin? I mean, sheesh. I would smash